Commander Li-Hun pressed his palm against the cold metal of the observation deck as another red alert flashed across the bridge screens. The research vessel Taigok had been stationed at the edge of human space for 3 months, monitoring routine colony check-ins. What started as a normal Tuesday shift had become humanity's first glimpse into a nightmare. "Sir, we've lost contact with New Sol Colony," reported Communications Officer Park Gina, her voice tight with worry. "Oh, that makes 12 colonies in the past week." Heian nodded grimly. The pattern was becoming clear. The Outer Rim settlements weren't just going quiet due to equipment failures or solar storms. Something was systematically destroying them, moving inward toward Earth like a plague consuming everything in its path. Dr. Kim Sola looked up from her xenobiology station, her dark eyes reflecting the glow of alien data streams. She had been working without sleep for days, trying to decode the strange signals that preceded each colony's silence. "Commander, you need to see this," she called out. Hyun walked over to her workstation, where incomprehensible symbols scrolled across multiple screens. The air around Sola's equipment hummed with an odd energy that made his skin crawl. "What am I looking at, Doctor?" "First contact," Sola replied quietly. "They sent us a message 3 hours ago. I've been working to translate it." She touched a control, and a harsh, melodic voice filled the bridge. The words were alien, but somehow their meaning became clear in the listeners' minds. "Children of the Void," the voice intoned, "your existence is an offense to the divine order. The Zeltharan Empire comes to cleanse your corruption from the sacred galaxy. Your gods are silent because you have none. Ours. Sing with righteous fury." The message ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Hyun felt his blood turn cold. This wasn't just a territorial dispute or resource conflict. This was a holy war, and humanity had been marked for extinction. "How many ships are we talking about?" Hyun asked, though he dreaded the answer. Tactical Officer Yoon Minho checked his sensors and paled. "Long-range scans show at least 300 vessels, sir, but they're not like anything we've ever seen. The energy signatures are impossible. Some of their ships are the size of small moons." Through the viewport, space itself seemed to shimmer as the Zeltharan fleet approached. Their vessels defied every law of physics humanity understood. Ships that looked like living cathedrals drifted through space without visible propulsion, their surfaces covered in what appeared to be organic growths that pulsed with bioluminescent light. Sola's equipment began registering massive energy spikes. "Commander, they're doing something. The readings are off the charts." Her instruments screamed warnings as power levels that should have been impossible began building in the alien fleet. "What kind of weapons are those?" Yen whispered, watching. As reality seemed to bend around the enemy ships, space twisted like heated glass, and stars appeared to move in the background as gravity itself was manipulated. "I don't think they're just weapons," Sola said, her voice filled with scientific fascination and terror. "These energy patterns match the signals we detected during their message. Sir, I think they're actually communicating with something during combat, getting real-time guidance." The first demonstration of Zeltharan power came when they encountered a human patrol ship near the Kepler station. Hyun watched in horror through the long-range sensors as the enemy vessel simply pointed at the human destroyer. The ship didn't explode or break apart. It just stopped existing, as if it had been erased from reality itself. "Dear God," breathed Weapons Officer Choi Dae-ho. "How do we fight something like that?" But Sola was studying her readings with intense concentration. "That's just it," she said. "They invoked their gods before firing. Look at these energy spikes." She pointed to her screen, where impossible readings showed power being drawn from somewhere outside normal space-time. "Whatever they're channeling, it's not from our dimension." As the Taigok prepared to retreat deeper into human space, more reports flooded in. The aliens didn't just destroy human settlements, they purified them. Every trace of human presence was methodically erased, leaving behind empty worlds that sparkled with an eerie, clean light. "They're not conquering," Hyun realized. "They're sterilizing, like we're a disease that needs to be completely eliminated." The retreat order came from Earth Command within hours. All human forces were to fall back to defensive positions around the core worlds. But as the Taigok jumped to hyperspace, Sola continued studying the alien transmissions. "Commander," she said quietly, "I'm picking up something else. The Zeltharans aren't just following orders from their government. Every major decision, every battle formation, every weapon discharge is preceded by what looks like a prayer. And something is answering those prayers." Hyun stared out at the stars, knowing that humanity faced an enemy unlike any in their history. The Zeltharans didn't just have superior technology.
Ow.
They had gods on their side. Real ones. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and the enemy could rewrite the laws of physics with divine power. Captain Park Min-ho stumbled through the airlock of his destroyer, Seoul's Pride, as emergency teams rushed to help his crew. Half his ship was missing, torn away by weapons that shouldn't exist. His uniform was burned and bloodied, but his eyes held something worse than physical pain. They held the look of a man who had seen the impossible. "Get me Admiral Choi," he gasped to the medical team trying to examine his wounds. "She needs to know what we're facing out there." 30 minutes later, Minho sat in the debriefing room across from Admiral Choi Nara, Earth's top military commander. His hands shook as he activated the holographic display, showing the remains of New Busan colony. "There were 50,000 people there yesterday," Minho began, his voice hollow. "Families, children, researchers. When we arrived, the colony was just ... gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Like it had never existed. The hologram showed empty space, where a thriving settlement should have been. No debris, no radiation, no trace that humans had ever lived there. Just clean, empty void." "Explain what you saw, Captain," Admiral Choi said gently, though her own face was pale with worry. Minho closed his eyes, remembering. The Zeltharan ships came out of nowhere. Huge things that looked like floating temples, covered in those glowing symbols. But here's the strange part. "Admiral, they didn't attack us immediately." He paused, trying to find the right words. "They formed a perfect circle around the colony first. Then they all started humming. Not their engines, Admiral. Entire ships were making music, like a choir." Admiral Choi leaned forward. "Music?" "Religious music," Minho confirmed. "They sang for exactly 10 minutes. I timed it. Then all at once, they pointed their weapons at the colony and fired. The whole settlement just disappeared. No explosion, no fire. It was there 1 second. Gone the next." The hologram shifted to show Minho's sensor readings during the battle. The energy patterns were unlike anything in human databases. Power seemed to flow into the alien weapons from somewhere else entirely, somewhere beyond normal space. "When they turned on us," Minho continued, "they did the same thing. Perfect formation, ceremony first, then attack. My weapons officer tried to target their command ship, but they moved in patterns that made no tactical sense, like they were dancing. Meanwhile, 3 levels below in the research labs, engineer Yoon Dae-ho was having his own nightmare. Scattered across his workbench were fragments of Zeltharan technology that his team had recovered from the battle site. The pieces hummed with residual energy that made his instruments go crazy. "Hand me the quantum scanner," Dae-ho told his assistant, Lee Soo-jin. His hands were protected by thick gloves, but he could still feel the alien metal's strange warmth through the material. The scanner beeped frantically as it analyzed the fragments. "These readings can't be right," Soo-jin muttered, checking the display twice. "The power source is showing as infinite."
Dae-ho nodded grimly.
"That's because it's not drawing power from our reality. Look at these quantum signatures." He pointed to the screen where impossible equations scrolled past. "This technology is somehow connected to another dimension. Maybe several dimensions." As they worked, the alien fragments began to glow brighter. Dae-ho quickly moved them into a containment field, but not before both engineers felt something brush against their minds. A presence ancient and vast that regarded them with cold interest. "Did you feel that?" Soo-jin whispered, backing away from the workbench. "Whatever. Powers their technology is still active, Deho replied, sweat beading on his forehead. These aren't just machines. They're conduits for something alive. Back in the debriefing room, Captain Minho was describing the strangest part of his encounter. Admiral, they could have destroyed us instantly. You saw what their weapons could do, but they didn't. They gave us time to escape. Why would they do that? Admiral Choi asked. I think they wanted witnesses, Minho said quietly. When they let us go, their leader sent us a message. The words just appeared in our heads. He shuddered at the memory. It said, "Tell your kind that the cleansing has begun. Those who kneel may be spared. Those who resist will be unmade." Then they just ... left, vanished into hyperspace like they were never there. Admiral Choi studied the battle reports from other colonies. The pattern was always the same. The Zeltherons would arrive, perform their ritual, destroy everything, then move on. But they always left one human ship alive, too. Spread the word. They're not just conquering, she realized. They're sending a message. Submit or be erased. Down in the labs, Deho made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden in the quantum structure of the alien fragments, he found something that looked like code. When he tried to decode it, the symbols shifted and changed as if they were alive. Sujin, get Admiral Choi down here immediately, he called out. I think I know why their technology is so advanced. They're not just using tools. They're channeling something that's helping them build these weapons. As alarms blared throughout the station, more reports came in. Colony after colony was disappearing, and the Zeltheran fleet was growing larger with each attack. Somehow their victory was making them stronger. The war had begun. Humanity was fighting an enemy that treated battle like worship, destruction like prayer. Dr. Jiang Mingi had been staring at the same neural implant for 6 hours straight when she finally understood what she was looking at. The Zeltheran priest they had captured during the raid on Titan Station lay unconscious in the medical bay. But the strange device fused to his brainstem continued to pulse with alien energy. It's not just a communication device, she whispered. To herself, adjusting her microscope for the 100th time, the implant was unlike anything in human technology. Living metal threads wound through organic tissue like parasitic worms, creating a network that extended deep into the alien's brain. Her assistant, Dr. Kim Hanna, looked up from her own workstation. What did you find? Minji pointed to the holographic display showing the implant's energy patterns. These aren't just receiving signals from the Zeltheran command structure. They're feeding something. Look at these readings. The display showed a constant stream of energy flowing out of the priest's brain through the implant. But the destination wasn't another ship or planet. The energy was flowing into what appeared to be empty space, disappearing into dimensions that human science couldn't detect. It's like a pipeline, Minji continued, her excitement growing. The implant is harvesting the priest's psychic energy, his emotions, his worship. It's sending all of that somewhere else. Hannah frowned at the data. But where? The energy just vanishes. Not vanishes, Minji corrected. It's being consumed. It's by something that exists outside our normal reality. The breakthrough came when Mingi managed to activate one of the implant's dormant functions. The unconscious priest's body convulsed as the device suddenly blazed with light. For just a moment, the lab's sensors detected something impossible. A presence, vast and hungry, reaching across dimensional barriers to feed on the alien's mind. Dear God, Hannah gasped, backing away from the medical table. There's something in there with him. Minji's hands flew over her controls, recording everything. Not in him, connected to him. These implants aren't just tools. They're feeding tubes for parasites that live in higher dimensions. Within hours, Minji's discovery reached the Emergency War Council. Admiral Choi Nara, President Kim Tae-yeon, and the top military commanders gathered in the secure briefing room deep beneath Earth's capital. Explain it in simple terms, Doctor. The president requested as Mingi activated her presentation. The Zeltherons worship what they call gods, Mingi began.
Oh.
But these beings aren't divine. They're energy parasites that feed on consciousness, emotion, and psychic energy. They've been using the Zeltheran civilization as a farming operation for thousands of years. The hologram showed the neural implant structure. Every Zeltheran has one of these devices implanted at birth. The parasites convinced them it was a gift from their gods, a way to commune with the divine. In reality, it's a feeding mechanism. Choi leaned forward. How does this help us fight them? Because now we know what we're really fighting, Minji replied. The Zeltharans aren't our enemy. They're victims. The real threat is these dimensional parasites. It's cut off their food supply, and their power disappears. That same night, physicist Kong Woojin received the classified data from Minji's research. His laboratory became a fortress of activity as teams of scientists worked around the clock to understand the enemy's weakness. If these parasites exist in higher dimensions, Woojin muttered to his colleague Dr. Ansuho, then they must have some kind of anchor point in our reality, something that keeps them connected to their food source. Suho nodded, studying the quantum equations that covered every wall of the lab. The implants create a dimensional bridge. If we could disrupt that bridge, the parasites would be cut off from their power source, Woojin finished. But how do we build a weapon that can affect higher dimensional beings? The answer came. From an unexpected source, the captured priest, still unconscious but monitored constantly, began showing signs of distress. His implant flickered erratically, and the energy flow became unstable. It's fighting the anesthesia, observed Dr. Park Ji-hoon, the alien's medical supervisor. Implant is trying to wake him up. Woojin realized the significance immediately. The connection works both ways. If we can overload the implant with the right frequency, it might damage the parasite on the other end. Working with salvaged Zeltharan technology, Woojin's team built the first prototype God-killer device. It was crude, barely the size of a briefcase, and consumed enormous amounts of power. But when they tested it on the captured priest's implant, the results were immediate. The implant shattered like glass and something screamed, not audibly but across multiple dimensions. Every psychic-sensitive human in the facility collapsed, clutching their heads as an alien shriek of pain echoed through realities they couldn't perceive. It worked, Woojin breathed, staring at the readings. We heard it. The Battle of Kepler. Station became the testing ground for humanity's new weapon. Captain Lee Jinwoo commanded the experimental ship Incheon, equipped with the largest God-killer device they could build. As the Zeltharan fleet approached in their usual ceremonial formation, he waited for the perfect moment. Distance, Jinwoo ordered. Let them begin their ritual. The enemy vessels formed their circle, beginning their haunting chant. Energy flowed from higher dimensions, powering their reality-bending weapons. But this time, humanity was ready. Fire the God-killer, Jinwoo commanded. The device unleashed a wave of disruption that tore through dimensional barriers like tissue, paper. The effect was instantaneous and horrifying. The Zeltharan ships went dark as their power sources were severed. But worse, something screamed across multiple realities as the parasitic beings themselves began to die. The war had taken a darker turn. Humanity had learned to kill gods. Lieutenant Han Sumin guided her fighter through the graveyard of what had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. The Zeltharan dreadnoughts floated like dead whales in the void, their bioluminescent hulls dark and cold. Just days ago, these ships had been capable of erasing entire star systems. Now they drifted helplessly, their crews trapped inside vessels that no longer responded to any command. Control, this is Scout 7, Suman reported through her radio. I'm seeing movement in the observation ports. The aliens are still alive in there, but they're not trying to repair anything. They're just ... sitting. Through her canopy, she could see Zeltharan faces pressed against the transparent sections. Of their ships, their large, luminous eyes stared out at nothing, unblinking and empty. Some of them rocked back and forth in what looked like distress. Others simply stood motionless, as if waiting for something that would never come. Any response to our communication? Attempts, asked Commander Yu Sangman from the rescue ship Gwangju. Negative, sir, Sumin replied. They're not answering our signals, but they're not attacking either. It's like they can't decide what to do. Back on Earth, Communications Officer Oh Jin-woo sat surrounded by monitors showing alien transmissions from across former Zeltharan space. The change had been immediate and devastating. For once there had been coordinated military communications and religious chants, now there was only chaos. Ma'am, you need to hear this, he told Admiral Choi Nara, adjusting his headset. I'm picking up broadcasts from their homeworld. The transmission was heartbreaking. Zeltheran voices speaking in their musical language pleaded desperately into the void. The translation software worked overtime to convert their words into human speech. Great ones, why do you not answer? One voice cried. We have served faithfully for 10,000 cycles. Have we displeased you? Please, give us guidance. We do not know how to live without your wisdom. Other channels showed the collapse of their society in real time. Cities that had functioned perfectly for millennia were falling into chaos as the Zeltherans found themselves unable to make even simple decisions. Traffic systems failed because no one knew which routes to take without divine guidance. Food distribution stopped because the priests, who normally received instructions from their gods, could no longer tell farmers what to grow. Their entire civilization was built around constant divine input, Jinwu explained to the admiral. Every major decision, from military strategy to city planning, came from their gods. Now that the connection is severed, they literally don't know how to function. Admiral Choi studied the reports with growing unease. How many of them are we talking about? Conservative estimates put their population at over 50 billion across 200 worlds, Jinwu replied. And from what we can tell, they're all experiencing the same paralysis. Captain On Seo-yoon led the first humanitarian mission into former Zeltheran space 3 weeks after the last godkiller weapon had been fired. Her ship, the Harmony, was equipped with medical supplies and translation equipment, hoping to establish peaceful contact with their former enemies. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. The first Zeltheran world they visited was in complete chaos. The aliens had gathered in massive groups around their temples, waiting for voices that would never speak again. Many had stopped eating, convinced that their gods would provide guidance about food if they were patient enough. Captain, we're reading massive population centers with no activity, reported Science Officer Lee Kung-jae. It's like entire cities have just ... stopped. Seo-yoon beamed down with a small team to investigate. The Zeltheran city was architecturally beautiful, with soaring spires and organic curves that seemed to grow from the ground like living things. But it was eerily quiet. The aliens they encountered moved slowly, their usual graceful coordination replaced by confused, hesitant steps. When the translation devices finally allowed communication, the first Zeltheran they met simply asked, "Are you the new gods? Will you tell us what to do?" The question hit Seo-yoon like a physical blow. These beings, who had been capable of destroying stars just weeks ago, were now asking humans for basic guidance because they had never learned to think for themselves. "We're not gods," she told the alien gently. "We're just trying to help." The Zeltheran's large eyes filled with what could only be tears. "But someone must guide us. We cannot exist without purpose, without direction. Our great ones have abandoned us. Are we to simply die that night?" Seo-yoon called an emergency meeting with her senior staff. "We need to face what we've done here," she told them. "We didn't just defeat an enemy. We destroyed the foundation of their entire existence." Her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Park Min-seok, looked uncomfortable. "They were trying to wipe out humanity, Captain. We defended ourselves. Did we?" Seo-yoon asked. "Or did we commit genocide against beings who were themselves victims?" These weren't evil conquerors. They were slaves, following orders from parasites that had been feeding on them for thousands of years. The moral weight of their victory was becoming clear. Humanity had saved itself by killing gods, but in doing so, they had doomed an entire civilization to existential collapse. The Zeltherans hadn't just lost their power source, they had lost their purpose, their identity, their ability to exist as a functional species across their former empire. Billions of aliens sat in their darkened temples, waiting for divine voices that would never return, slowly starving as they forgot how to live without constant guidance from their absent gods. The heavens were silent, and an entire civilization was dying in that silence. Commander Lim Junho walked through the empty corridors of what had once been the most sacred building in the Zeltheran Empire. The Temple of Eternal Voices stretched for kilometers in every direction, its crystalline walls designed to amplify the songs of gods across dimensions. Now, It was silent as a tomb, filled only with the echo of his footsteps on the polished floor. Dead priests lay scattered throughout the temple, their neural implants burned out and smoking. Some had died instantly when the god-killer weapons severed their connection to the energy beings. Others had lived long enough to experience the terror of absolute silence before their minds simply gave up. The lucky ones had gone insane, their broken laughter still echoing faintly in the vast chambers. "Commander, you need to see this," called Dr. Bayuna from the archive section. She stood surrounded by floating holographic displays that showed the true history of the galaxy. Her face was pale with shock as she gestured at the data streams. Junho approached the displays, trying to make sense of the alien symbols that shifted and changed before his eyes. "What am I looking at, Doctor? It's the records of every civilization the energy beings have consumed over the past 1,000,000 years," Yuna replied, her voice hollow. The Zeltharans weren't the first species to be enslaved by these parasites. They were just the most recent. The holographic displays showed dozens of different alien species, each one following the same pattern. First contact with the energy beings who presented themselves as gods offering guidance and power, then gradual enslavement as the parasites fed on their worship and consciousness. Finally, the enslaved species would be used to harvest other civilizations, growing the parasites, feeding ground across the galaxy. 37 different species, Yuna continued, scrolling through the records. Each one lasted between 10 and 50,000 years before being completely consumed. The energy beings would drain them dry, then move on to find new hosts. Junho studied the images of extinct civilizations, each one showing the same progression from free-thinking beings to mindless slaves. How long were the Zeltharans enslaved? According to these records, about 12,000 years, Yuna answered. They were actually one of the more successful host species. Most of the others burned out much faster. Outside the temple, the capital city of the Zeltharan Empire was slowly dying. Some areas had been abandoned completely, their inhabitants either dead or fled to other worlds. But in other districts, something remarkable was happening. Small groups of Zeltharans were learning to live without their gods. Captain Park Jimin led a team of human advisors through one of these recovering neighborhoods. The aliens moved hesitantly, still unused to making decisions without divine guidance, but they were trying. A Zeltharan shopkeeper nervously asked human customers what they thought he should sell. A group of alien children played simple games, having to invent the rules themselves for the first time in their lives. It's like watching an entire species grow up, Jimin observed to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Choi Hanna. They're having to learn things that most beings take for granted. How to choose what to eat, where to live, what to believe. But not all the survivors were adapting well. In the temple district, thousands of Zeltharans sat in meditation poses, still waiting for their gods to return. They had been there for months, sustained only by the food that human relief workers brought them. Their eyes were empty, their minds unable to process a reality without divine guidance. "Will they ever recover?" Hannah asked, watching a group of aliens who hadn't moved in weeks. "Some will," Jimin replied. "Others, I don't think they can." When your entire identity is built around serving gods, what happens when those gods disappear? The strangest development came from a small group of Zeltharans who had begun worshipping humanity instead of their lost gods. They followed human relief workers around, asking for guidance on every decision. When humans tried to explain that they should think for themselves, the aliens looked confused and afraid. "You killed the Great Ones," one of them told Dr. Kim Sulji, a human psychologist. "Trying to help them, you must be greater than gods. Please, tell us how to live." Sulji found herself in the impossible position of trying to convince former god worshippers that humans were not divine. "We're just people," she explained patiently. "We make mistakes, we get scared, we don't know all the answers." The Zeltharan looked at her with desperate eyes. "But you knew how to defeat gods. You must have wisdom beyond our understanding." Admiral Kosanhi stood in the central chamber of the great temple, where the high priests had once received direct communications from the energy beings. The walls were covered with burn marks, where the neural implants had overloaded during the final god-killer attack. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant sound of wind through the empty corridors. Was it worth it? She asked the empty air. Her words echoed back without answer, a reminder of the new reality they had created. Her aide, Commander Nam Tae-young, stood beside her with a datapad full of reports. The casualty estimates are in, ma'am. Approximately 15 billion Zeltharans died in the first month after the Godkiller attacks. Another 20 billion are suffering from what our psychologists are calling divine withdrawal syndrome. Sun-hae nodded grimly. And the energy beings, Gon Tae-young confirmed. Our sensors can't detect them anywhere in known space. They either died or fled 2 dimensions we can't reach. The Admiral walked to the center of the chamber where a massive altar had once blazed with the light of divine presence. Now it was just cold stone, cracked and broken. History will judge us, she said quietly. We faced gods and chose to kill them rather than kneel. Whether that makes us heroes or monsters remains to be seen. Outside the temple, the galaxy continued its rotation, but something fundamental had changed. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the universe was truly free. No parasitic gods fed on the worship of enslaved species. No divine voices commanded the destruction of entire civilizations. The silence was absolute. And in that silence, every thinking being would have to find their own path among the stars.